It was the transatlantic steamer Arch Tour that first noticed something was wrong. On its voyage to the port of Leith from Philadelphia, the Arch Tour passed the Lighthouse on the Flannan Isles on the night of the 15th of December, 1900, and the crew saw that its light was off. After docking in Leith 3 days later, the news was passed on to the Northern Lighthouse Board that something was amiss on Flannan. The board dispatched the lighthouse relief tender ship Hesperus to investigate. Arriving at the island on Boxing Day, the ship's captain, Jim Harvey, sounded his horn and sent up a flare, hoping to alert the 3 lighthouse keepers, James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and William MacArthur. There was no response. Disembarking from the Hesperus, relief lighthouse keeper Joseph Moore set off up the 160 steep steps to the lighthouse. 3 giant black birds perched on the cliffs above him cast their beady eyes on his progress. Reaching the lighthouse compound and entering the living quarters, Moore noticed that the clock on the kitchen wall had stopped, the table was set for a meal that had never been eaten and a chair had been toppled over. A canary in a cage was the only sign of life. Returning to the eastern landing, Moore reported his findings to the captain of the Hesperus. Harvey sent another 2 sailors to shore, and they and Moore began looking for signs of life. A supply box had been smashed open and its contents strewn across the ground despite being over 100 feet above sea level. There was no sign of the 3 keepers. Harvey had left Moore and 3 sailors behind to tend to the light and continue the search. Muirhead knew all 3 of the missing men well. After going over the wreckage on the western landing, Muirhead speculated that Marshall and Ducat must have headed out into the storm to try to secure the equipment stored there. When they did not return, Muirhead surmised that MacArthur must have ventured out to try to find them. From evidence which I was able to procure, Muirhead concluded in his official report, "I was satisfied that the men had been on duty up till dinner time on Saturday the 15th of December." However, speculation was soon rife. Theories more suited to the Middle Ages were soon doing the rounds, such as the men being gobbled up by a giant sea serpent or whisked away by a huge seabird. One theory had the men leave the island by boat to escape debts, while another had them spirited away by the skeletal crew of a ghost ship. Some people even thought that the men had been kidnapped by foreign spies. The logbook entries were injected into the story several years after Marshall, Ducat, and MacArthur disappeared. In the first entry, Marshall is supposed to have written that a great storm the likes of which he had never seen before had hit the island. A second entry has all 3 men praying in the eye of the monstrous storm. On hearing about the existence of these logbook entries, many questioned the idea that the men had been swept out to sea. There was indeed another explanation. The first is based on the character of William MacArthur. It has been speculated that he could have started a fight up on the western landing, which led to all 3 men falling to their deaths from the cliffs. The second theory is that one of the men, again, probably MacArthur, murdered the other 2, ditched their bodies into the sea, and then threw himself off the cliffs. It is of course perfectly possible for men in confined quarters to rub each other up the wrong way to the point where they snap and all hell breaks loose. The much more plausible explanation is that Marshall and Ducat were swept away while trying to secure the supplies and equipment on the west landing. Of course, the real reason for the disappearance of James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and William MacArthur will probably never be known.